What's up everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I am super late in getting this out and I decided to condense this into one video. So this is my best and my worst books of 2020. Hopefully this video isn't too long, but I do have a cup of matcha with me with one of my favorite mugs of all time. So let's just go ahead and get started. We're first going to talk about my least favorite books of 2020, and I just want to do a disclaimer just like everybody else does on booktube, where obviously these could have been books that you loved, they could have been your favorites. I'm not saying that they were the worst books ever written, they were just really bad for me and like my style, and I feel like every year I get better and better at figuring out my reading tastes, and everyone has different reading tastes and that's okay. If you guys pay attention, like my really good friend Gwen over here on booktube, she loves a lot of books that I don't love and vice versa, and that's okay. Like, it's fine, everyone can just read whatever they want to, and I'm just making this video because it's what everyone does at the end of the year, and I like saying what books I did not like as much. So starting out, I'm gonna go with Preludes and Nocturnes. This is a graphic novel by Neil Gaiman, and honestly I would have never picked this up from my own choosing. It was because I was doing a challenge in my book club and I had to read this for that challenge. This book is totally not for me. Like, it is not for who I am, and so of course I didn't like it. This was very, very hard for me to understand. I do not think I'm smart enough for a graphic novel like this, and it had a lot of magic and superpowers and Old English in it, and I literally had to look up a YouTube video in order for that video to explain what was happening, because I was reading it and I had no clue. I could not even tell you what was happening in that book. So that is definitely on my worst list. Now this one obviously is a surprise that it's on my list. This is Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. If you didn't know, I did a spoiler vlog for this a couple months ago, and I'll link it right here if you didn't check it out and you want to go check it out. Okay, so I finished Heartbones and we're gonna give it 1 star. Is this for real? Is this real life right now? I'm giving a Colleen Hoover book a 1 star. But this book was not one of Colleen Hoover's better books. Like, I am pretty disappointed, and I'm wondering if it's because she's been writing 2 books a year, and I wonder if that's kind of like putting a little bit of a damper on her creative outlet maybe. This was also a young adult book, and I usually don't like young adult books, and so the characters were just really immature. They did a lot of stupid things. The storyline was very similar to some of other romance books that I read this year, and for those reasons that's why I put it on my worst list. It did not have the like emotional impact that a lot of her other books have that I really love about her other books, so that's kind of like what was upsetting to me. Next up we have Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay, and again this book I thought it was going to be something different, and that's why I didn't enjoy this one as much. This one was supposed to be like an end of the world apocalyptic zombie type of book that had like a virus in it, and I love those types. I love survival stories, but it actually turned out to be not much of that. It was actually more of like a friendship. It was about relationships. It was about like, it was mostly like characters talking to one another, and I felt that that was very boring to have in an apocalyptic type of book. But if you love getting to know characters in your books, and you love like character-driven books, not plot-driven books, then you might actually really like this one. Next up, this is definitely an unpopular opinion. I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This one, again, it totally went over my head. This is like a horror, psychological horror maybe is what I should say. It definitely makes you think. So this book is about one thing but actually about another thing. You kind of have to read it, and then you have to read like theories about it, and then you have to go back and reread it again, and I really did not want to have to reread it again, so I ended up just being majorly confused, and I just thought that, yeah, it just wasn't for me. Like, if you like those types of things with the ambiguous endings and books that like aren't really what they seem, then you probably would really like it. I thought I did like stuff like that. Like, I love movies where I'm so confused throughout the whole movie, and then at the end it like explains all this stuff and it's like a puzzle puzzle piece going together, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. But with this one, it didn't go together. It didn't make sense, so I was just confused at the end. Next up, I have The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. This is a contemporary, like, women's fiction book, which I have found is not my taste in books, and I just don't like quirky characters. This is one where this character Nina is like, she loves cats and she loves like wearing polka dots and smelling books and, you know, just stuff like that, and I just found it very annoying. I don't know, it just wasn't for me. I feel like Gwen would actually really like this book. I talked about that on our podcast because we did an episode all dedicated to our best and worst books of the year. If you didn't know, me and Gwen have a bookish podcast. You can check that link down below. But it was really funny because I was like, I'm pretty sure that you would like this. It seems like such a Gwen book, but to me, it just didn't have the depth that I was looking for. Next up is Love at First Like by Hannah Orenstein. So this one actually had a really good concept, but it was done very poorly. This is about a girl that kind of is like faking it on social media and just keeps going along with like the faking on social media, and I liked that storyline, but it went way too far. The character didn't learn anything. The character was very unlikable, and I thought that there should have been a turning around moment in it. So yeah, that's why I rated that one low, mostly just because I thought that the author just should have kind of had a better message in it and not kept the character kind of like doing the wrong thing for so long. Next up is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Yes, I do have two of my favorite authors on this list, which is really bad, but this I think is her first book, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't like it as much. You can tell that it's a lot more amateur than her later novels, and I thought I was gonna like it because it's about this couple who met and got married like very quickly, which is something that my husband and I did, and then it turns out that he is killed like within a week of their marriage, which that it says it on the back, like it's not a spoiler. But I didn't like the relationship that she had with her mother-in-law, and I thought that that was a little unrealistic, and so it turns out that I just was not impressed. There wasn't as much emotional punch, it wasn't as mature as her other books, and that's why I put it on my do not like list. And then we have The Girl in 6E by A.R. Tor. This one is just weird. I'm sorry. There are a lot of people that like this book, but this is about a sex cam girl who solves a mystery much better than an investigator does. I don't know. It's weird. It's like a thriller, but then like a really smutty book put together, but I just felt like it wasn't realistic because like what cam girl, not saying that cam girls can't, but what cam girl is going to be able to just like all of a sudden solve a mystery better than someone that's been doing it their whole life? Then we have Dry by Neil Shusterman. This again I thought was going to be a lot more apocalyptic than it was. This is about like a drought thing that happens in California. It is a young adult book, so we're all reading about little kids, and I just felt that in real life these little kids would not be doing what they would have done in the book. Or does that make sense? Like, you know, I know that sometimes people write little kids as like really cool people, but I guess I just really like realistic books, so it always gets me when like the kid is like beating up this person and then like does this really cool trick and then like jumps on all this stuff. Like I don't think that's really what would happen. So I did just, it was just like not written for me. I think that's the problem. I do think that a young adult would probably really like that as an apocalyptic story, but for me it was a little boring. Didn't really have the punch I was looking for. Okay, and last up, I'm gonna go ahead and put Tender is the Flesh on this list. This is by like Augustina Bazterrica. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I only gave this book 2 stars. I had a lot of high hopes for this. I thought that this was gonna be a really great like book about cannibalism. I thought that I was going to be really intrigued by the story. I almost thought it was going to be kind of like that one season of The Walking Dead. Really liked that season, but It turns out that this book was translated, so I ended up kind of like really missing a lot of the points. It was very hard for me to follow. I think that what we're actually getting from this video is that I'm not very smart, so that's why I'm not getting a lot out of these books. But anyway, if you're a smart person, then you probably would like this book. You would actually be able to appreciate it more than me. It was translated from Spanish, which I think, I don't even know Spanish, so I think that might have been a little bit of the language barrier, but it was very, very, very gory. Very gory. And I thought it was going to talk a little bit more about the world that they were living in, but it ended up just really being about a slaughterhouse and just constantly talking about the slaughterhouse. So I thought it could have been way better than it was. But yeah, so those are all the books that I did not like this year, and let's go ahead and go into the books that I absolutely loved this year. And I'm sure that there won't be very many surprises because I am very good at like only giving books 5 stars that I absolutely love, and so you've heard me raving about a lot of these books the whole entire year, but let's just go ahead and put them in a list of 10. Okay, first off, I want to talk about Una Out of Order by Margarita Montemor. I love this book. I found out this year that I love this concept of like time travel, alternate reality, thinking about your future life and, you know, changing events and stuff like that. I love those types of books. So this one is about this girl, Una, who literally lives her life out of order. It's on New Year's Eve day-ish kind of thing at midnight or whatever. She ends up waking up and she's in a different year every single New Year's Eve. So she leaves her, like her older self leaves her a letter from the previous year, but like obviously it's out of order. So she doesn't know like what year she's gonna end up in. One year she could wake up in 2019, the next year she could wake up in like 1992. It's all different, and it's really cool because like obviously all the trends are changing. The characters in this book are absolutely amazing, and that's why I ended up rating it a higher rating. At first I was only rating it like 4.5 stars, but I bumped it up finally to a 5-star read because the characters, I just wanted to know more about Una's life and all of the characters in this book. It is a great one. Next up we have Mallory by Josh Malerman. This is the sequel to Bird Box, and I loved it. It was so good. Bird Box is like one of my favorite apocalyptic books. I feel like it does everything right. You know, you're wondering what it's like to live in the world, and you're, you know, going through some of the scary situations, and Mallory was the same way. You still feel blind in the book, which is, I love that way of storytelling. So my heart was literally pounding while I was reading it. It's amazing. Both of those books, the sequel and the first one, are equally 5 stars in my opinion. Then we have The Roanoke Girls by Amy Engel. This book you guys know that I loved. It was kind of like my intro into getting into cult books. And so this one is kind of like a cult book, but it also has some triggering topics in it. So make sure that you do your research. I'm not really gonna say the topic it is because it kind of gives away the whole story. It's one of those books where you kind of like it's hinting at something that's happening, and the longer you read you're realizing like, okay, yes, this is happening, this is wrong, this is crazy. You know, it kind of deals with a little bit of brainwashing there, which is why I like reading cult books. I love seeing kind of like how people are brainwashed and how it affects them. So if you like those types of books, you can check this one out. Going along with the cult theme, I loved Educated by Tara Westover. This is actually a nonfiction memoir, which I realized that I love reading those. I kind of got into nonfiction memoirs this year, reading more about actual people's experiences, and this one is about like Mormon fundamentalists and how they grew up without any education, kind of, you know, being a little bit brainwashed about government conspiracies and religious conspiracies and stuff like that. And it shows just like how much that takes a toll on you, especially in your adult life and in your childhood. I just really like reading about this stuff because you don't really think that people grow up that way, but they really do. Like, this happened pretty recently, and I don't know, it's just always shocking to me. Another cultish type of book that we have is The Sound of Gravel by Ruth Werner. This is a book about polygamy, so it literally is like a whole polygamist family, and it is a nonfiction memoir, which again, like, I was so shocked that people grew up like this, like grew up with having a bunch of different wives and a bunch of different children and living pretty much in like a dump of an area without like electricity and running water and stuff. And it's not like this is the old days, but I cried my eyes out reading this book because it is so emotional, and I really felt for a lot of the children in this book. It shows pictures, and I don't know, it was crazy. I do have a whole vlog about reading some of these cult books and just my emotions going through them, so you can check it out here if you're interested. Literally just finished reading The Sound of Gravel, and this is like one of the saddest books I have ever read in my life. But yeah, cult books are one of my favorites. That's why I have so many on this list. Okay, getting a little bit out of the cult theme, I have Cruel Beautiful World by Caroline Leavitt, and this has a little bit of cult vibes, like if you wanted to kind of start a little bit, but it's also like a forbidden romance, and it's also kind of a thriller, and it's also a little bit historical fiction. So it's kind of like this whole mix, and I loved it. The storytelling in it was amazing. The characters, Iris in the story, oh my gosh, like her character was, I just was like enthralled by it, and I don't know why. I'm not usually like a character driven person. This has like some cult vibes from being in the 70s. Forbidden romance is a younger like high schooler and a teacher romance, and there's some brainwashing involved. So again, really great story. It was pretty thrilling too. So it's a great mixture if you want to try out any of those like little subjects. Then another forbidden romance, we have The Idea of You by Robin Lee, and this is an age gap romance where the woman is older. She's 39, the boy is only like 20. He's in a boy band. It talks about how fame comes into play with this, and how other people's opinions of you when you're in the spotlight come into play, and how harder it is to make decisions when all these people are like looking at you and like expecting a certain thing. And I really like that. It kind of showed the double standard between like, you know, older guys being able to date younger women, but the, you know, vice versa, it's not really a thing. And so I really loved it. And finally, Robin Lee said that she's gonna write a sequel to it, which I am so excited about because I was crying reading this book, and I cannot wait to read more of that story. Then we have the Bromance Book Club by Alyssa K. Adams. I loved this book so much because it is a romance book with not a whole bunch of smut, but a lot of emotional impact with having a married couple who was on the verge of getting divorced. And I love that the man is working towards trying to fix this marriage. Usually, you know, you hear or see like, oh, the guy is just like okay with leaving, and it's the girl that always wants to fix stuff. But this was amazing that it actually had like the husband trying to like put the marriage back together and really try and work on fixing it. And I loved that. I love books that have like that are about marriages but that aren't perfect marriages. That is one of the things, like I wish that there were more romance books written about marriages, because I mean there are romance in marriages, you just gotta write about it. And last but not least, my all-time favorite book of the year was All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. And I know that this can be a very heavy book or a very triggering topic to some people. And so don't think that since it's my favorite that it needs to be your favorite, or that you need to go and run out and read it right away. Definitely do your research before you read this book, because I would not want to push it onto anybody that doesn't feel comfortable in reading it. And I know that you guys want to read my favorite books, but I don't want to, you know, like really push that onto anybody that doesn't feel comfortable. This book is an age gap romance. It does start inappropriately a little bit with the child, like it actually being a child, but there's not a romance in the beginning. It is a friendship, almost like a guardian, if you want to say. And then as the child ages, there is a romantic kind of relationship being evolved there. And so the child is still a minor and underage, but it is a lot older than what you think. Some people think it's like a 6-year-old, and it's not. Romance doesn't start until she's 14 or around that age. Some people are a little worried about it because they think it's a grooming situation, but with me having read the book, I do not think that it was a grooming situation. And I think that the life that the child was living before she met the guy was way worse than her having like the guy actually take care of her later on. And so you really need to just do your own research and see if it's something that you would like. But I loved this book. There was emotion in it, there was heartbreak in it, there was just literally like the purest love. I thought it was a very pure story. And also the author at the end writes an author's note about how a lot of the story is actually parts of her own life experiences. So that really made me also open up my eyes and kind of like view it as not just something that is terrible, if that makes sense. But I do have a whole spoiler vlog for it if you want to see my actual thoughts about what actually happened, or if you want to follow along while you're reading, and I will link it up here for you guys to go check out. I am so happy I did a spoiler vlog for that book, because yeah, it's definitely going to be a book I'm going to reread in the future, because I did love it so much and I did not want it to end. It was just really, really good. So I hope that you guys do your research, and if you do read it, let me know, and let me know your thoughts about it, because I like hearing what other people thought about it. Okay guys, that's it for this video. That was my best and my worst books for the year of 2020. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and definitely let me know in a comment down below. I want to know your best book and your worst book of 2020, because I want to see if I agree with you guys. But that's it, and I will see you guys very soon in another video. Bye everyone.